Hey guys, so here's part 2 of the 3.3 day 1 notes. We're going to talk about composition of two functions. So what does composition mean? That means that we are going to take one function and plug it into another function, okay? So notice the notation. We have what is called the inside function, okay, so our g of x, and then our outside function. Now these can change all the time. You could have f of g of x, you can have g of f of x, okay? And we can switch it a lot. So let's do example 3, where we are going to do our compositions, okay? So the idea is that the inside function, okay, we're going to plug that into our outside function. And this is where we see the variable, okay? Oh no, this is not variable, right? But so where we see the variable, that's where we're going to plug our inside function. So here on A, our inside function is g of x, and our outside function is f of x. So we're going to plug g of x into our f of x wherever we see x here, okay? So we're going to plug our 5x minus 2 into this x. Now, before we do this, notice that on our 4x, we have it to the negative first power. Remember, we really don't like to have negative exponents. So I'm actually going to rewrite this, okay? So when we have that negative first, remember, we can think that x goes to the denominator. Now, the 4 stays in the top because that negative 1 does not attach to itself to the 4. It's just the x. So this is another way of writing f of x, 4 over x. We're going to use that there. Okay, so when we do f of g of x, okay, we're going to take f of x and plug it for where we see x into the f of x. So that means I'm going to have 4 over 5x minus 2. Okay, so I basically just took this whole function and just plugged it into x. That was it. Okay, now let's reverse that. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take our 4x and then we're going to plug it in for our x here on part B. Okay, so now I have for g of f of x. So f of x is now the inside function. I'm going to plug the 4 over x into where I see x on my other one. So for g of f of x, I have 5, and then I have 4 over x minus 2. Now we do need to simplify. Now on the 4 over 5x minus 2, we couldn't really simplify that anymore, so that was our final answer. But here we can simplify because the 5, I can multiply by the 4, okay, so that gives me 20 over x minus 2, okay. And then if we look at this here, well, we really can't do any more simplifying, so that's just going to be our final answer. So 20 over x minus 2. Okay, we're going to try another one of those. We're going to do example 4. Now here, we do have a rational exponent. So on the last one, we had a negative exponent, and I did change it. Here, we're just going to leave it as so, or we can also change it. Now the idea is, when we are doing this and just doing operations, we could just leave it with the 1/4, okay? But when we get into, and this will be the day 2 notes, when we talk about domain sometimes we want to change this. So I'm going to show you both ways. Let's go ahead and do that, and I'll make it a little bit more sense. Okay, so notice that the inside function is g of x. So we are going to take our 5x minus 2 and plug it for where we see x. This is just like if we had numbers. You're doing the same thing. You're just substituting, okay? Okay, so we have inside. That's our g of x, and then the outside function is f of x. So with our f of g of x, and plug the 5x minus 2 for where I see x. Now I don't keep that x, it replaces it, it goes away. So that means I have now 5x minus 2, and that's being taken to the 1/4 power, okay? Now let's say we want to rewrite this, now it's in radical notation. Now the reason why we might want to write it in radical notation, and as I said before, is when we get to the domain, it'll make it a lot easier to find the domain, okay? Usually, like as I've been saying, if it is already in radical notation, you leave it as so, but later on we might want to change it, okay? So we could leave it as 5x minus 2 to the 1/4, or what we can also do is rewrite it in radical notation. So remember, 4 is our root, 1 is the exponent, and 5x minus 2 is our base. So meaning we have the 4th root of 5x minus 2. And that whole thing is underneath because the 5x minus 2 is in parentheses, so the 1/4 goes to everything. So we can write it like this, or we can write it like this here. Okay, make sure you watch part 3 of the 3.3 day 1 notes.